Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second meeting on the Golden Quarter. This time we are talking about Christmas. So last week it was a discussion about Halloween, which really gets this final quarter of the year kick-started. But the big one, the one which almost our entire membership does tend to build to, especially those with a lot of retail and hospitality in their areas, which most high streets will have, is of course Christmas. And it's such a critical time for our members. And this Christmas in particular is a really important one. There are discussions going on that says this Christmas could be the best in years. There's bits of research out there. So this, which has been reported in Retail Week, research from Havas Media Network, saying that looking at customer sentiment year on year in terms of how much Brits plan to spend on the high street for the Golden Quarter, it's up massively this year than what it was last year, the first increase since 2021. Bit iffy in terms of the reporting when it says first time we've seen this bump since 2021. We all know what happened in 2020. So of course, 2021 was always going to have more positive sentiment than 2020. In reality, this research is probably more positive than the reporting suggests. We could be in for a good Christmas. Obviously, we've had nothing but economic shock after economic shock over the past few years, whether it's COVID, whether it's cost of living crisis, etc. So are we coming back to some form of normality? And it needs to be a strong Christmas. The high street needs this. It's absolutely critical for the survival of so many businesses. The challenges still remain for so many companies. If you look at some of the stats put together by PricewaterhouseCoopers and the local data company on store openings and closures within the retail sector for multiples, so that's chains with 5 or more outlets, we are still seeing things running rather negatively in terms of closures. So this is looking at the first 6 months of every year. And as you can see, for 2024, we've had a total of 6,945, almost 7,000 shops that have disappeared. This doesn't take into account openings. So when you take into account openings, you're looking at just over 2,000 net closures on the high street, which is significant. So in terms of that, the amount of closures we've had in total, it is the equivalent to nearly 38 shops per day. So I think this was research which appeared on the BBC a few weeks ago. This is where the research emanates from. So around 38 shops per day are closing. There are still some massive economic challenges out there, which means the high street is fragile. Some of these challenges include high energy costs, which are expected to go up again over the next few months. So it's a really difficult time, continues to be a really difficult time. The high street needs a good Christmas. So will it be a good Christmas? Today's conversation is what can we expect in terms of high street performance this Christmas? And then we're going to move on to how are we going to help drive footfall to the high street to support those businesses? What do we all have in store? And of course, we'll end with the usual roundtable discussion on all the things we're planning on, some of the challenges we might have, and see if we can troubleshoot some of those challenges as we go along. So without further ado, can I want to say not introduce, because she's probably been part of the ATCM network longer than I have. Bring in Diane Wehrle, wearing a Bouclair hat, to talk to us about high street performance this Christmas.
Thanks, OJ. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. I shall put it on slideshow. Okie dokie, thanks, OJ. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. As OJ said, I work with Beauclair as their brand ambassador, and my company is Rendle Intelligence and Insights. Hopefully you'll have seen and heard of us over the last year. I say us, it's me. I must say that because I have an individual membership of the ATCM, so I don't say us. But really, the basis and the foundation of Rendle and my work with Beauclair is all about transforming data into insights. So lots of high streets, lots of individuals are very data rich, but quite insight poor. And my discussions over the past year with lots of bids and high streets have identified that very clearly. So I'm working with Beauclair to really transform that and make sure that whatever data everyone has actually means something, be converted into something that drives action and influence. So I'm going to talk about some of the bit of a context, really, because that's quite important, because OJ, bless you, you haven't painted a great picture of where we are at the moment in terms of the economy, but lots of influences on the high street. And actually some of the indicators that I'm going to point to actually are quite good. We've seen good improvements in some of the key indicators. I'm just doing a whistle-stop tour of some of those, just to give us a bit of a feel where we sit. Now, these are for August, primarily because the latest data from the ONS on inflation is for August. We're waiting for September, so I've kept these to August, but I will comment on where there are results for September. So August this year, inflation is now at 2.2%. Last year it was at the same time at 6.7%. So we've seen a big decrease in price inflation, which is fantastic. And wage inflation is now beating price inflation. So that makes us all feel quite a lot more wealthy. Consumer confidence in August had improved from August last year, -13 versus -25. It did take a bit of a dip in September. I must confess, it's now -20. So, and I don't know if that's post-election wobbles. We shall wait and see in October to see whether that's the case. But people were feeling a little bit more insecure. Having said that, the other indicator that is always really helpful to look at is house prices, because if people are feeling very nervous, they don't tend to move around, they don't tend to move house, but where they're feeling more confident around their job and their wages, there tends to be movement in the housing market. And we've seen big increases in house prices over this past year. In August, it was almost the biggest rise since 2021, 2022, 4.3% compared to -4.5% last year. So really big changes in there. So people are moving around. What does this mean for sales? So here we're talking about Beauclair data, and we're looking at sales in UK towns and cities. And we're looking at this by 5 key sectors that drive 85% of all the sales in towns and cities: fashion, food and drink, grocery, health and beauty, and general retail. And you can see by this bar chart, the bar on the left is fashion, and you can see that fashion over the year to date to September has had a much poorer performance than the other 4 sectors. So fashion sales have dropped by 6.3% annually versus a 1.7% in food and drink, and just over 1% in the other categories. So fashion has had a challenging year. We know this partly because we bought a lot of fashion when we were in COVID, in lockdown, and we're still wearing that. And also our tastes have changed, so we don't need to buy as much formal wear, and we're not in the office quite as much as we were, so we can get away with less. And actually fashion has quite a high price point. So if we're going to make some cost savings, it's often in the fashion sector. This graph just shows the trend line showing footfall in high streets and into stores versus sales. And sales are in red, and obviously the sales are from Beauclair. And you can see there are some key differences between footfall and sales. And this really indicates that you need to look at sales, because it's the conversion of that footfall into sales that's going to ensure the longevity of high street business. OJ quite rightly pointed out the number of stores that are closing, and that is because they're not achieving the sales they need to achieve to survive. And there are some key differences in certain points of time. August last year, sales were much higher than footfall. December, January this year, sales were lower than footfall. So you can see some big differences where things are not being converted into sales. So it is important to understand that dynamic. So what does it all suggest for Christmas and this year? Well, firstly, I'm going to start off, and I think some of you will have seen this graph before. Nikki Butler presented it in the last Street High, the Halloween conversation. This shows week-on-week percentage change in sales in 2022, which is in the blue bars, 2023 in the red bars. And you can see quite clearly in October, November, December that there's very little change in sales apart from half-term week in October. That really boosts sales in towns and cities. It goes flat again in November until we hit Black Friday. And then when we hit Black Friday, that really acts as the kickstart of the Christmas trading. Big boost in sales on that week. And then that follows through with further increases from week to week, right up to Christmas. Christmas week, week 51, last year, Christmas Day was Monday. This year, Christmas Day is Wednesday. So we're actually going to get a peak trading day, the 23rd of December, in week 51. So 51 is likely to be even stronger this year, which is it's great news for high streets. Where Christmas falls is absolutely key. So we're going to have a full trading week beforehand, plus the 23rd of December in the week of Christmas. So we can see that Black Friday really does kickstart Christmas trading. And then looking at Black Friday itself, I've got a graph here that shows online spending by household and offline or store spending by household. And, you know, everyone said for a long time, oh, Black Friday is an online event. It isn't. And this demonstrates that it isn't. And this graph shows the percentage change in sales from day to day from the week before Black Friday, so week beginning 14th of November last year, Black Friday week and the week post Black Friday. And I've pointed out Black Friday itself. And you can see on Black Friday, online sales rose by 53% from the day before. Offline or store sales rose by 43%. So there is a slightly greater increase online, but it's still pretty significant offline too. And you can see the difference between that and the Friday before, much bigger increase in sales. There was an increase in sales the previous Friday, of course, but it's a bigger increase on Black Friday. And actually, interestingly, the offline sales continue to increase on the Saturday, whereas online sales drop away on the Saturday following Black Friday. So really strong store event. So gear up for it. So in terms of the monthly sales from each month to month across the Golden Quarter, as consumers, we're creatures of habit. We don't change the way we shop and the way we live very easily at all. It takes big shocks like the pandemic to move us out of our habits that are pretty entrenched. And so what I've done here is look at the monthly change in sales from Beauclair from September to October, October to November, November to December. And this really helps us understand when the Christmas trading period kicks in. And in 2022 and 2023, you can see there was a single-digit increase in sales in October from September. In November from October, there was a slightly greater month-on-month increase. In December from November, huge. And there's no reason to suggest that that pattern of activity will change this year. So I'm forecasting a 5% increase in sales in October from the previous month. In November, a 9% increase in sales. And in December, a 34% increase in sales. So we're going to follow a very similar pattern that we've done for the previous few years. And then, of course, the key thing is how that translates into annual change or year-on-year change in sales. And we have year-on-year change throughout this whole year. And here we're seeing year-on-year change in each of the months from January through to December in 2022, in 2023 in the navy, and this year, 2024 in the red. And you can see 2023, where we're coming out of COVID still, we were seeing these increases year on year in most of the months in 2023. Typically, when you get increases in one year, you tend to get decreases in the following year. It's just the way the market works because you've got a strong comparable against which you're basing your sales. And actually last year in October, November, December, I'm sure everyone probably remembers, it was a particularly challenging Christmas period. Things were pretty bad economically. Inflation was high, interest rates had gone up, a lot of people were coming off fixed rate mortgages, and there were more to come. And people were feeling pretty despondent, to be honest. And so sales dropped year on year in each of the 3 months from October through to December. This year, we're expecting an increase in sales, which is really great. So October, we're expecting a 3% increase in sales, November, 1.5% increase in sales, and December, 2.5% increase in sales. So, I mean, I'm not talking about blowing out the park here. I'm not talking about unrealistic forecasts, but I am talking about positive increases in sales from last year, which is what, as OJ said, is what the high street needs. It's not going to be a universally flat or even distribution of uplift. Some sectors are going to do better than others. And here I'm looking at those 5 key sectors that drive 85% of sales in towns and cities. And the sectors that are going to do best are fashion, surprisingly, but of course they had a low period last year, so we're going to see a biggest uplift here of 3.8%. Food and drink is going to see 4.2% increase, and this is over the period, average increase over the period from October through to December. And actually we are becoming much more sort of prone to spending our money on experience and leisure than we are on buying stuff. I think one of the things that has shown through COVID is that we want to socialize, we want to experience, we want to have enjoyment, and food and drink, as our holidays, are really important. Along with that is health and beauty. And this is a very broad category. It's not just makeup and cosmetics and toiletries. It's everything to do with self-care. So it's gyms, it's massages, it's all of those, you know, having nails done, hairdressing, all of those issues around elements around the health and beauty. We're going to see a further increase of 2.5% over those 3 months from October to December. Grocery is going to stay around about the same level, about 0.6% increase. Realistically, from year to year, our spending on grocery is fairly flat. We don't tend to increase our food spending enormously on a year on year. It's typically pretty flat. And the other one is general retail. And general retail is the category or the sector in which department stores fall. Department stores, bookstores, and sort of value retail. And we've seen quite a lot. I mean, we know there's been a loss of department stores. We've seen BHS, we've seen Debenhams, we've seen House of Fraser all go. Yes, we have Fraser's come back into the fold, but we don't have very many department stores. And we've seen a lot of spend leaving that general retail category already. And it's unlikely we're going to see that flooding back into the general retail category. Also, general retail is the sector which has the highest online spend of any of the sectors. Around 66% of spend in general retail is online, whereas it's about 45% in fashion. So you can see that because a lot of the stuff you can buy in department stores is branded, so you can actually get it online pretty easily. So we're not going to see a huge increase in general retail spend. But overall, over the October to December period, total sales, we're anticipating an average increase of 2.3%. So cautiously optimistic. So in summary, what am I saying? Well, Black Friday kicks off the Christmas trading period for sure. And all these things is it here to stay? That's long gone. It's here to stay. And it's the kickstart. It's when all the Christmas lights are up and ready and everyone's anticipating Christmas. We're going to see this modest year-on-year rise in sales. Fingers crossed. Greatest rise in fashion, food and drink, and health and beauty. In terms of the broader context, inflation's likely to stay around the current level. The Bank of England is still nervous that it's going to go up a little bit, and they're unlikely to reduce interest rates until they feel confident that it's staying at its current level or even decreasing. So the jury's out on that one. We've still got some fixed rates mortgages that are going to expire next year, so that's going to act as a pull on some of the high street spend. Some families are going to feel a loss in budget to spend in the high street. I've talked about this less emphasis on fashion. That's going to continue. Fashion in September actually had a reasonable time compared to some other sectors, but it's generally quite tough on fashion. And again, this leans into the fact that we want to spend our money on experiences and leisure and health and beauty and self-care. So overall, cautious optimism for quarter 4 2024. Fingers crossed the high street does well.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Diane, as always, that's really insightful, and I've got so many questions. I'm sure others will have as well. So guys, if you want to start putting questions and comments in the chat box, and we'll pick them up as I go. But firstly, Di, I'm going to just chuck some questions at you.
Okay.
You dropped some bombs in there and then swiftly moved on as if
it was whistle stop.
It was whistle stop, yeah. First big question. Does fashion still have a role on the high street anymore?
Ooh.
Or are we potentially looking at an end game?
Oh, no, fashion will always have a role on the high street. Fashion, the contribution that fashion makes in the high street is about 23% of sales are in fashion. So it's still there. It's just not seeing those increases. Now, I think what always happens with retailers, and retailers love a poor year-on-year performance the previous year because it means their comparable is going to be fantastic, So it has had a tough time, and fashion does go through peaks and troughs like any retail sector because of the changing tastes. And we've had the biggest shock to the fashion system that we've had in decades, probably since the 60s when the miniskirt was invented. You know, we are not working in our offices as much. Our fashion tastes have changed. You know, COVID has meant that we're much more focused on living and experiencing and self-care. All of those things have come together in a perfect storm and hit the fashion sector. And it takes time for the fashion sector to catch up. So I think fashion retailers are catching up. They are tweaking on this and they are changing their collections. But it will always have a role in the high street because we dress, you know, but it will change, and it's just having a bit of a trough, really.
Okay, it's a long trough. It's a long trough.
It's a long trough. Well, it's only a year. It does feel like longer, but it's only a year.
Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking, just things like Arcadia Group gone. There's a lot of big retailers gone. Anyway,
you see, there are a lot of inherent issues where, as a retailer gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more difficult to keep abreast of trend. And M&S had the same thing. Look what happened to M&S 10 years ago, and they managed to pull it back. And now they're, you know, they're star of the high street again. So it can happen, but it doesn't always happen.
Fair enough. Next big question. I feel like this is a little unfair. It's a proper interrogation. Right. Is there a massive change happening in terms of the way the high street is used for Christmas? Because you're stating the strongest year-on-year change is for food and drink, which is positive. And on a meeting on high street performance last year, we had a lot of areas who, in terms of traditional retail performance, they were saying that things felt really flat last year. Like Christmas just really didn't happen. But it was different for those places with a lot of hospitality and leisure because people were prepared to go out for the social experience during Christmas. And now I'm looking at food and drink, and yet again, it looks like it could be another good year. Are we more using Christmas now as a chance to get together with colleagues, friends, family, rather than a chance to do shopping on the high street because we do have online if we need it? Or do you think Christmas hasn't really changed that much? It's just those economic shocks that maybe have put things out of whack, but it's temporary. Things will come back again.
Right. So the Beauclair data shows, so data for household shows that the proportion of spent online drops actually in December. So people go back into stores in December to a greater degree. So people love shopping in store in Christmas because it's festive and enjoyable. But at the same time, as you know, as we all know, that our tastes have changed and shifted, our habits have shifted, and it happened gradually over the years before COVID, but really kick-started post-COVID, that we realized, you know, we want to socialize. We missed it, and we didn't realize how much we valued it until we didn't have it. And combined with that, majority of us are not working in our offices all the time. You know, a lot of us are working 2-3 days a week in our offices, some not at all, and a minority maybe all the time, but most people are not in their offices. So they really value the opportunity to get out and engage with people on a face-to-face basis, which is where we want to do that's food and drink. And also, of course, it's very hard to have food and drink sales at home, otherwise it really takes the essence away from the experience of having food and drink. So it is an offline, just store-based, physical-based activity. So I think our pattern of our visits is shifting, and it's not particularly visible in the data yet, but what we're seeing is footfall is going to be negative. I mean, it's been negative. I mean, I've been preaching about footfall being negative for decades, haven't I? And it has been, as there's been transition over to online browsing. We know that a lot of our browsing is now online, so we to make fewer trips was lower. That's going to now carry on because of hybrid working. You know, there's another element in there as well, is hybrid working. So footfall's going to be lower. So when we do go in, we go for longer, we spend longer, we do more, so we combine trips. So yes, we'll go shopping. Of course we will, because if you're going, why not? And it's great. You know, the shops look lovely, don't they? And the streets are great. But actually, it's not just about shopping. It's not buying stuff just generally. And a lot of people are transitioning over to, you know, rather than buy presents, they're going to go out for dinner with each other or buy each other experiences. So that combined trip is much stronger now than it ever was. So yes, you know, if you had a high street just full of bars and restaurants, it wouldn't work. And if you had a high street just full of stores, it wouldn't work. But that blend is really important. But getting the blend right is equally important, because you've got to have it's all about the right propositions to the right high street.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point. And really, is that any different from the high street in general? It's not just about Christmas, isn't it? We've been saying this about the high street for years, in that it can't just be exclusively focused on retail and shopping anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely. And health, I mean, years ago when I started in the business, this was like over 30 years ago, the planning authorities would stop non-retail frontages getting planning consent because it interrupted the retail frontages. Don't you remember that, OJ? It was a nightmare. You couldn't have a takeaway, or you couldn't have a restaurant because you wanted retail. That's completely changed, and it's good that it's changed, and it's important that it's changed. And not only food, drink, but self-care and health and nail bars. I mean, everyone decries nail bars, but actually people use nail bars, and if they don't use them, they won't survive. So market will tell out. But actually all those elements around health and beauty are really important as well, because that's what drives trips into town centres.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, I've got lots of other questions, but actually some of them are probably going to be for the wider group. So what we'll do is we'll come back to them during the roundtable bit. I think without further ado, Martin and Jaxx, can I bring you in?
You can indeed, yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Martin Wehrle. I'm Sales Director for LITE Limited. I've been in the festive lighting industry for over 30 years, and a bit like you, OJ, don't have many hairs on my head anymore. And I put a lot of that down to the stress that comes with the job. One of the most frequently asked questions I have from clients is exactly what we're discussing just here: the fashions and the trends of the business. What's the latest colour that's in? What's the latest style? Because I believe it's one of the biggest expenditures for town councils and city centre management companies and bids in the whole of the year. To get the offering of Christmas lights right is quite tricky, and that's what we do. As I say, I've been in the industry over 30 years. I joined LITE just over 21 years ago, when the company was in its third year of trading. Three guys got together and decided that they wanted to set up a business together and offer a customer experience that was unique to festive lighting. And I decided at that stage that it was the right company to be with, and I have never looked back really at all. Jaxx, how long have you been with the company now? Jaxx is our design manager.
Yeah, I've been with LITE for 10 years now, just over 10 years.
So Jaxx is going to show us lots of pictures that she's taken and videos that she's made, and some that we've actually employed others to take by drone footage these days, which is one of the good ways of capturing Christmas lights from above. But yeah, as I say, trends and fashions are very, very important. But what I've found is it's been generally over the years, it's been technology driven. So if I can go back to perhaps 17, 18 years ago, when LEDs were a very costly product that wasn't really affordable by any town councils or city councils, the costs of the LED lights have fallen dramatically over the last 17 years. And in those early days, filament lights were the only thing that you could offer, really. There was the warm white colour, the goldy sort of filament, and then the wishy-washy sort of pastel colours, the reds, the blues and the greens, that you can still see on the old Christmas American films that my wife watches from July onwards, where they've got these very wishy-washy colours. And compared to these days, the LED colours are just so rich and vibrant. It really is a totally different offering that we have now. Benefits of LED, I'm probably sure you're all aware of, but they're very, very cost effective to run in terms of energy, and they don't need replacing as often either. So energy is obviously a big concern of everybody. So if we can reduce energy costs, then that brings a big offering to the party. Initially with LEDs, the electric blue colour and the cool white were colours that had never been seen before. So everybody seemed to jump on the bandwagon, and that was the latest trend. Let's have the blue and white. And for 4 or 5 years, almost every scheme in the UK that could afford it were having LED lights with this blue and white. But after a time, obviously the trends changed. People were a bit fed up of seeing that. So they started to move over to the rich, vibrant other colours as well. So it became a multicoloured sort of scheme that everybody wanted. And in time, that sort of waned as well as fashions change. And for the last few years, really, the gold and silver, we call it warm white and cool white, but they've been very much on trend. They're very elegant and timeless. It felt like that was how it was going to stay for quite some time. But Jaxx and I and a couple of my colleagues, we go to Christmas World in Frankfurt every year to look at the trends, to see what the manufacturers are working on, and to see where things might be heading. And we came across a stand called, well, it was run by a company called LED Works, and they got a product called Twinkly Pro. I don't know whether many people have heard of it, because it's still quite a well-kept secret, and it's not the cheapest product out there for Christmas lights, but it's completely programmable. I don't know whether you've got a video, Jaxx, have you? That could show of a Christmas tree. This one tree was on this stand, and all the lights on it were completely programmable. So every single LED could be told what color to be, when to come on, when to go off. And it gave you a 3D TV screen, if you like, low-res TV screen, and you could program all of those lights to do whatever you wanted, really. So we were able to put on various different images, moving images, Santa waving his hand, or reindeers running around the tree, or you name it. We could program it like a TV screen. And that's been very much at the forefront of certainly city centre Christmas schemes. LITE embraced that in day one almost, really. I mean, this is Coventry at the Switch On event in Coventry city centre. I don't know whether many people know Coventry, but this is Broadgate. The lights in the deciduous trees are a product that we manufacture ourselves, but I'll come on to that later. It's looking like it's a bit sticky, Jaxx.
Yeah, I'll just slide you through it.
Good idea. Zoom's never been great with videos.
No. So you can see we've got text running through there, animated. We've got snowfall effects. There's the reindeer and Santa and sleigh running through. Obviously, this is all being filmed from a drone above, but so it was used for marketing purposes, for telling the locals what was going on in the centre, what events were coming, as well as just the Christmas images that you see here. Yeah, it's very sticky, isn't it? What a lot of people think is that this product is very bright and garish, and perhaps not for us. I went to Solihull, and we've worked with the bid there for a number of years, and I said to them, look, we've got this fantastic product, and I showed them some video, and they said, well, it's not really for Solihull, you know, it's a bit bright and garish. But then I explained to them we could decorate all the trees down the high street and have them just being warm white twinkling, or a very subtle elegant effect, and then on the hour, every hour, we could have a light show. They were convinced enough to give it a trial, and they demonstrated that footfall increased quite considerably, because there was extra dwell time in the high street. Oh, mummy, daddy, can we just wait till the trees do their dancing thing again? Let's stay and have another cup of coffee or a burger. And so it's been quite revolutionary. As I said, we adopted it very early on, and there were quite some headaches, as you would imagine, with something that's remotely programmable. I mean, it saved us sending crews out to do switch on events, because we could control it all back in Burnley. Just by the touch of a button, we could turn everything on. It's black magic to my way of thinking, but it really has made a big difference to some of the schemes we can offer. This is a lovely video if it works well.
This one just shows like Christmas trees, real life Christmas trees sort of wrapped with twinkly products. So it's not just like curtains that we can do, put it on everything really. It's like big or small. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we started just doing Christmas trees, but now we've got it to all sorts of different applications, as Jaxx says. As I say, it's not the cheapest product in the world, but it really does have the wow factor. If you get it in the right place and tailored to the right demographic, then it can be really very, very effective. So whilst we still watch those pictures, one of our questions that we've been asked by quite a lot of clients is about lights that can stay in permanently in trees to save on the costs of installation and take down. So deciduous trees, we can put lights in trees and leave them up all year round, but the old traditional LEDs, the cheap ones from China, just weren't up to the job, and they were failing very early on. So we sat down about 16 years ago with Lancaster University, and and brought to their specialist technical people the issue we've got with traditional festoons, particularly on seafronts where the atmosphere is very aggressive, lots of high salt and moisture in the air. A lot of festoons just can't stand it. You know, I mean, we know of one scheme that went up earlier this year. It lasted 2 weeks and then it all started to fail. Not one of ours, thankfully, but our product that we've manufactured in tandem with Lancaster University. It's called the Maxi-LED festoon product, and we've had it on seafronts now for 10, 12 years without any failures, and it's just such a fantastic product. A little bit more expensive, but when you think of the cost savings of the installation and the takedown, so the same applies with deciduous trees. I've got lights in Bristol, for instance, that have been in trees 12 years, and they're still going strong, you know, so it's a great product, and we've now developed a network of distributors for us around the world. We currently distribute to about 20 different countries. So that's a great product as well if you want to have pay up front or spread the cost over a period of time. And it pays back within 2 or 3 years, really, of, you know, once you've done the initial installation, that's it. It's a fit and forget. And we've got other applications as well, which we can show you later on, which Jaxx has got some pictures of, I think, as well. So yeah, those products use a Cree LED. I don't want to get too technical, but the Japanese manufacture a Cree LED, which is a very high quality, which is originally intended for car headlights, and we've used that technology because it's obviously those LEDs were built to withstand lots of impact, and yeah, very high IP rating, which means the water can't get in and do damage to the workings of the festoons. So that's a very, very popular product now as well. Yeah, so what other videos have we got, Jaxx? I think I've covered most of my waffly bits, so this is hopefully the more interesting bits, although how the videos are going to work, I'm not sure.
They've got a few videos here showing the Twinkle product we've just been talking about, so we can do it on like column displays, and then it does seem to work. It's working on mine. I don't know if it's working.
Yeah, it looks fine now. Yeah, it seems to settle down. Do you want to enlarge it a bit? I won't let you on that one.
And then there's like branch wrap trees. I won't play that one. And then just showing how we can sort of do a full colour show, if that's what you want, where it's doing all kinds of things. And then there's different options really. So like Martin said before, you can have it doing something very warm white, cool white for an hour, and then on the hour you can have full-blown colour, crazy. You could have it blue and white, you can have it. And then some of the columns as well we leave up like year round. So like you can see, we've got a Valentine's show. So then you can leave it up and you can have Valentine's, you can have Halloween, everything. And then there's places where they're like, oh, we've got a food festival on this weekend, the colour scheme's going to be red and white, can we have it all doing this? And you know, and then if you've got it maybe on a curtain something, we can have it scrolling through saying food festival this weekend, 15th to the 16th, whatever. You see.
Yeah, that's working well now.
So is there any other videos or?
Well, we can just talk through these schemes here. Obviously, these are all quite recent installations for us. Birmingham one there is a colleague of mine looks after, but Worcester is one of our triumphs recently, isn't it, Jaxx? Jaxx designed this flying angel with the snowflakes that's gone down very, very well with them there. In fact, they've just extended for this year. They came to the end of a 3-year rental term and decided they want to extend the contract for another year. One in Reading, I don't know much about. Jaxx, are you able to give us any information about that one?
I personally didn't work on it. I think it was just a full scheme. They had mostly just the regular column displays like you can see there, and then there was a few elements where I think they incorporated twinkly, so it doesn't have to be like all singing, all dancing. It could just be like one branch wrap tree and that's like the focus point sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, Coventry decided in June time that they weren't going to have any Christmas lights at all. They wrote to me and said, we're broke. I'm sorry, Martin, don't let it leak out to the press just yet, but we're not going to be able to have any Christmas lights at all. And I said, I think you might be reversing your decision in September, October time, but okay, if that's what you say, but I'll have to let go the window of opportunity where our installation teams will be installing your lights. They said, yeah, we're not going to change our minds, Martin, at all. And then 1st of September, I got an email to say, leader of the council's had a rethink, and as predicted, yes, reversed it, and we've managed to fit them in, thankfully, which is a relief. But yes, I think it's all very well in May, June time thinking that it's an expenditure we can do without. But I think when people come into September time, it really focuses their minds, and they start thinking about how negative publicity and people not coming into the city centre to spend money is going to be a catastrophe. So yes, we've been able to help them out, thankfully, this time. I don't think I need to tell you where that one's for. Obviously, we do these 3-dimensional letters, which are very, very popular. The Watford ones are with the twinkly lights. The ones above are just static or twinkling. Very difficult with the twinkly name being also very close to twinkling, but the twinkling effect is inbuilt into the LEDs, and it's a very cheap way of having animation in Christmas lights. But obviously, the far more impressive is the Watford letters, where they are Twinkly Pro letters, where you can program every letter, and very, very effective.
I think in terms of trends as well, this sort of thing's becoming quite popular, like leaving up year round. It's selfie points, everyone wants the picture, standing on the letters, posing, that sort of thing. And then we do offer as well now, if you can see the Narbonne one, where it's like accessories, so you can like, oh, we'll put flowers on it for summer, and we'll put Santa hats on it for Christmas, and there's a pumpkin on it for Halloween, and then everyone needs the new selfie, so you've got to go and take your new selfie with the new pumpkin. And
again, it's cost effective because the letters stay up all year round, and you're just adding little tweaks to it to make it more relevant to the time of year that you're currently at.
Again, selfies, everyone wants it, everyone's all about their Instagram. And
absolutely. We're also involved with architectural lighting. I know we're here to talk about Christmas really, but illuminating buildings at Christmas time is equally impressive. There's some big projects there, as you can see, Edinburgh Castle down there. We relit some 10 years ago, I think now, with colour controllable lighting. And I think this is what our architectural lighting division have got a full technical team, and they've been able to help us with the Twinkly Pro, whereas a lot of our competitors have struggled with it because it's so technical. We've been at the forefront of it in the world, actually, not just in the UK. So, but yeah, we've got some really big projects we've completed here, including the Mound, River building.
The Saltburn Pier picture as well, that's actually our festoon globe that Martin was talking about earlier. So it can be used for like anything really. It's pretty cool. So that's actually under the pier, right at the sea. But it's the DMX version, so it can change colours and things like that.
So you can imagine the waves and the high tides and splashing up against the lights underneath the pier. Still no failures. It's been up for 6 years, I think now, Jaxx, is it something like that? So it's yes, get the right product in the right location, and you're winning. So this is the latest development for light. We've played at projection lighting in the past, but 2 years ago we were introduced to a company called Gobo Service in Italy. In fact, Jaxx has just come back from there. Perhaps you can tell people a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, it's great. Like the mapping that they're able to do, like fitting it. I don't know if you can see on the top left-hand picture, you can see how the clock face has been illuminated in a white, and then sort of like the architectural features have been sort of done in whites, and then to contrast with the blue. So now we can pick out shapes on buildings and stuff. It's not just a flat picture that's on there.
And you can block out the windows as well, can't you? You can cut them out so you're not interfering with anybody living in those buildings.
Yeah, so that's one thing we can do. If you've got like windows, we can make sure that they don't have any light shining in them. So people in flats above shops and things like that, that's not really an issue now, where it's like, oh no, there's light shining in my window in the night.
Guys, this is all amazing, and you've given me lots of questions. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to open up the round table now.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to have these slides so I can share them with everyone, so they can take a look at everything? Yeah, that's fantastic. There's just so many questions in here. I mean, firstly, a question for you guys is, do you find, in terms of lighting and supporting a lot of practitioners, there is a real benefit to be had in terms of having a scheme that can be used for Halloween and then reprogrammed for Christmas? One of the conversations we had last week is because Halloween is becoming such a big event, and we all know how big Christmas is. The workload for businesses, for practitioners in the place management industry across the Golden Quarter is quite significant. And
Yes.
so anything we can do to minimize the amount of work that takes place in the transition between Halloween and Christmas is an absolute godsend.
Yeah, well, it also works to our advantage because we can install displays early,
Yeah.
set them up to come on for Remembrance Day, but prior to that, Halloween and Bonfire Night as well. So yes, in terms of the relevance to what your question is, then yeah, absolutely, it's perfect. You can use it all year round, as Jaxx was saying, not just for the early days of Halloween, but later on or in the following year for Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day in March. There's many opportunities, you know, even I know we don't celebrate it that much, but St. George's Day, you know, the red and white flag of England, why not? You know, it's could stay all year round, and we do that in several places around the UK.
That's amazing. And also open question for everybody on the call as well. Are there and Jaxx, you'll probably have an answer to this as well. Are there schemes designed almost with social media in mind, almost with something like Instagram in mind, to try and get as much profile as possible in terms of something that goes viral? Are we seeing more and more of that, trying to design a lighting scheme, an illumination scheme that works for social media?
Absolutely. The 3D features are always a big hit. I mean, we had a giant teddy bear with a red hat. It was 5 meters wide, 5 meters high, and the kids loved it. And then we got all sorts of things on Facebook, and people were naming him Charlie, and everyone wanted a piece of him, you know, to be seen by him. And yeah, there's so many examples of selfies now with Christmas lights. It's just it's become part and parcel of our experience when we're designing schemes, isn't it, Jaxx, really?
Like another thing that we didn't do a few years ago, but now we do, is like it's almost like a mirror frame, and you put that in front of the displays or something, because then people stand with it, and then, you know, you've got like the town name or the hashtag that the council want to use, and that's underneath, and then it's like, so then they're getting that in as well, and it's like hashtag whatever. So like, yeah.
Yeah, that's fab. Karen, can I bring you in?
Yeah, sorry, you might have mentioned this on the call, but I had to take a phone call then quite quickly. Is there anything that you're doing that's actually quite interactive, that where people can have some control of it themselves to change things? I've seen some sculptures where there's a text number that you can change to change the colorways of something. So you can actually control the actual lighting schemes yourselves if you're just walking past and you text it. Like in Middlesbrough, when the football club won, they could turn the sculpture red with red lights. So
Yeah.
it was like quite interactive. So if you said that, I do apologise, because like I said, I was on.
No, we haven't covered that, Karen. So go on, Jaxx, you were going to say.
Yeah, so it is something that we can do and is totally possible with the twinkly lighting that we have. However, I find that most customers generally tend to go, we don't want to mess with it. We want to give you a list of dates, and then anything that comes up during the year, and then you just program that for us. Like,
Right, okay.
tends to be a little bit of a vandalism issue with things like that. And I think people try and stay away from that as much as possible, just for further down the line, sort of.
Yeah. Probably something in the future then.
But no, the technology is right there and right now.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
is 100% something that's possible and doable.
if there's inherent problems, you can have an iPhone, for instance, and you can connect that to any of the twinkly installations. And if you've got an iPhone and you've got the app, you could draw whatever you wanted to come up on that screen that's on a wall, for instance.
Oh, well, I can see what the issues might be there.
So yes, yeah, that is dangerous. We tend to find 99% of clients say, just these are what we want for the year. Let's just program it so it comes on each of those days in those colours, saying this message.
Yeah, I think the one I saw had like maybe about 10 different movements with the light. So you could change it to blue and white, which was like a wave.
Yes.
And you could change it to twinkly. Then you could change it to red and white. Then you could. So there's like a menu of what you could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could just pick which one you wanted as you were going past, and just change it. And I thought that was quite good. Needless to say, that is no longer there, probably because IT-wise at that time it's probably broken now, and couldn't do it. But I'm sure things have advanced far enough, you know, for things like that in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. The technology's there to do pretty much what you want nowadays.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, and like open question to everybody. So what's happening in your area in terms of Christmas? It'll be good to hear stories, especially things on what budgets are like, whether you have Christmas light switch on this year, what you're able to invest, etc. Activities, events, grottos, challenges you've got. So it'd be great to hear from the group. Being fresh from the area and having seen it myself, Neil, I don't know if you want to go first in terms of the towns across the Bexley area. And how do you manage with so many different towns, and do they sort of perform differently during the Christmas period? Oh, Neil, we can't hear you. Hang on. I'm going to mute you and then I'm going to bring you back again. See if that works.
Oh dear.
No. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you might need to speak up a bit, but we can just about hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
No worries. So, London Borough of Bexley, we do not pay for Christmas lights in any of our town centres. However, what we do is give our town centres a small grant, and I mean small. So a lot of town centre partners do use this for Christmas lights, and as I say, they normally get a contractor to produce a scheme. However, we have got two big areas, which is Bexley Heath and Sidcup. Obviously, they've got more revenue because obviously they raise money from the levy, and they do have Christmas schemes. Bexley Heath does have an annual switch on, which is a big driver of footfall to the town. It's very interesting what you're saying about Martin about the stick it up and leave it process, which is attractive to us, because obviously I'd have to speak to my colleague within trees and everything, because he's always moaning about, oh, you can't wrap the trees that tight, they've got to be down, etc. So it's very interesting to hear about your scheme and the programmability of that, and the ability to have it for different events. If we have a market on, if we have a food festival, the Halloween, the remembrance service, things. So yeah, very interesting. But as I say, it's always a challenge with money. So the stuff that we could do more cost effectively, which I will mention the twinkly system to the bids and say, have a look at that.
Yeah, that sounds that definitely sounds worthwhile. I think so yeah, Martin and Jaxx, if you can put your contact details in the chat box as well, that would be great. And Diane and Nikki can ask you to do the same as well, with the insight provided at the beginning of the meeting. I think that will be really useful for everyone. So yeah, open to other questions and comments as well. And one thing I'm really interested in is, as Diane said from the outset, Black Friday is clearly a big event in terms of kickstarting Christmas. So I'll be keen to understand if anybody is doing anything specific around Black Friday itself to help drive footfall. If that is a date that sort of figures in the calendar, or if it's something actually, because of how busy things can be, you sort of shy away from. So I'd be really keen to hear more on Black Friday.
Can I just jump in there, OJ? I was actually quite surprised. I tended to think of Black Friday as being something that's like mainly online, and that's probably because we get Amazon thrown at us all the time about. I mean, they started putting the Black Friday deals out weeks ago, right, as to what they were doing on Amazon Prime. As to what the impact was on a centre as well. Now, I knew there'd be some impact, but obviously that's quite significant. So if you're not doing anything on Black Friday, is it because one, you hadn't occurred to you, or because you don't want to? What's the reason? why we're not doing, because it's obviously quite big in the time of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, Black Friday. I think it is massive. Am I right in thinking as well, Diane? You might be able to answer this. Black Friday High Street, Cyber Monday is the online alternative, which takes place literally the start of the week after.
Yes, I've still, after all these years working in town centres and retail, I still can't quite work out what the origin of Cyber Monday is, but it is a more of a dedicated online event, but it's now just morphing into Black Friday or Black Week, really. So the Black Friday deals don't end on Black Friday, they carry on for a few days spanning Cyber Monday. And but I think what I've seen over the last few years with Black Friday is that people really use it as the start of their Christmas shopping. You know, they know that all the towns are kitted up for Christmas by that point. All the lights are up, the Christmas decorations are up. A lot of people take days off work to go. It's an opportunity to just get that first hint of Christmas. And really, it's only a month away from Christmas, actually, we forget. So it offers people that opportunity to shop in town centres. And you know, you could see the uplift in offline, that's your store, and versus online. So sales. So it is a big thing offline. And in fact, you know, in the US, it's an offline, it's a store thing. It's not an online thing at all. It's only that it started back in the day here as an online thing, and that's sort of continued, that thinking around it. But actually, it's almost as much offline as it is online now.
Yeah, interesting. Amy, can I bring you in?
Yeah, thanks, OJ. I think from our perspective, I think and very similar to a lot of the others, I think it did, you know, originally, I think a lot of the perception was it was more of an online thing rather than you know, a physical sort of going into the shops. But I think what we've done, we within our area do quite a lot around shop local, sort of regular posts and posters. What we tend to do then is we do, rather than doing it like per premises, we do sort of a generic Black Friday, come and, you know, patronize the local town centres, shop local, and do it that way, with an emphasis of obviously buying locally, but, you know, getting into the hype, I suppose, really, of what Black Friday is. But I wanted to just go back, sorry, in terms of the Christmas lights, where I would say is probably a lot of authorities that I'm aware of, and very similar to the one from Bexley that came in, we don't do Christmas lights as a council. It is primarily led either by the business forums or by local community groups, to be honest. So it's not something that we lead, but we do try and support them, or try and point them in the direction of people that can give them grant aid or fundraising to support, or we try and link in then with like Christmas light switch-ons in terms of events. So but yeah, in terms of the Black Friday, we just extend and do sort of specific Black Friday shop local promotions in that way.
Yeah, okay. And I think something similar in Kensington. Maya, can I bring you in on your comment in the chat box regarding Black Friday and how you utilize the privilege card?
Yeah, actually, I participated in the Halloween roundtable, and that Black Friday has always been in the back of our minds, but because we're going big for Halloween this year, we didn't plan anything for Black Friday. So when we saw the stats that you shared, I went back to the team and I was like, no, we have to do something for Black Friday. So the easiest thing was to convince our members, all the businesses that already do offers with us. So we have a token card, which is a privilege card. And if they offer 10%, 15%, whatever it is, for Black Friday for that day, they will offer 5% extra. So far, the businesses that we have spoken to are on it. So that was the easiest way to do it this year, but probably next year we'll spend some more time on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's a simple but effective idea. I think if you've got an initiative or a program that helps to lock spend into the high street, then promoting that specifically for Black Friday, when you know there's a lot of people that's going to be out there wanting to spend money, then it does seem to me like a really sensible idea. So yeah, that makes sense. And what made you think about the almost like the clustering of all this work? So Halloween, Black Friday, and then all your sort of Christmas activity, with probably I think from the data, like the busiest period being almost the last few weeks before the big day.
I think it depends on each area high street, what works for them and their budgets. For us, as I mentioned in the last roundtable, that we've identified Halloween as our big event of the year. We know we can't compete in Christmas with the lights and all of that. So actually, we're spending our efforts on Halloween this year. It's our first year. We're going to see how that goes. And then Black Friday would be a small activation. Christmas, I could share with you quickly an interesting activation we're doing. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, you gave us Tim Burton Museum and Godzilla last week, so looking forward to seeing what you've got this time around.
So basically, again, we can't get the nicest, biggest tree in West or even Central London. So we thought this year, let's do something different. Let's we're gonna have an interactive Christmas installation next to a church, St. Mary Abbots, and then we're gonna. The idea is to get people to donate books to the Queen's Reading Room. We've partnered with the Queen's Reading Room. We're hoping this will drive footfall, spending to the high street, but also can get the community, to connect and to give back at Christmas. Again, it's not a big event, but it's something a bit different. So we're hoping to see what that will come out with. Of course, we will have some offers on our privilege cards. We'll have, at the farmers market, we'll probably do, a Christmas, a Santa visit and small grotto and stuff, little activations here and there. But we don't have a big light switch on, or, we have Christmas lights, but it's not in comparison to our neighbors. Yeah,
that's really useful. And just to say, I think my kids have asked me if they can watch Beetlejuice this Halloween. They already love Godzilla, so I think I've almost got them primed for a little visit down to Kensington soon, possibly, so we can do both Tim Burton and Godzilla. That will be the dream. That will be the dream.
You know what I think is fantastic as well is the fact we were talking about this last week, and you've gone away and done something positive with that information and actually got your members and your people on board with it to actually encompass Black Friday as a part of the plan.
We try our best. We try, but thank you for the information. Yeah,
it's really impressive. And I think, Diane, I'm going to come back to you for some more information, actually, because looking at some of the stats and figures you have in terms of how things do ramp up right before Christmas, like those last few weeks really being the busiest in terms of footfall. Is there something to be said about the relationship with online in that there is a heavy chunk of shopping that will be done online, but ultimately the closest you get to the big day, the less confidence people have in terms of whether they're going to be sure that presents are going to arrive on time for the 25th of December. And so the safest thing to do is to use the high street. Is it fair to say there's an element of that in the sort of huge increases in footfall right before Christmas?
Yeah, there is. I mean, that's been a characteristic we've had every year since God knows when, particularly to us a couple of years when we had the Royal Mail had strikes. That forced everyone into the high street. But it's interesting with online because it's sort of got to a plateau really now. It represents around 26% of total spend. So the majority of spend is still in store, but actually the influence of online is strong in browsing. So I think the onus for high streets really is about trying to get people into the town centre, because some research done by Retail Economics and a company called Octane said that actually those people who do browse in store, like nearly 95% of those will actually buy in store rather than buying online. So this, you know, there used to be a theory that you'd go in store, compare all the prices, go home and buy online. A small proportion of people do that. That's the one, Nikki. Well done. Thank you. And actually, the vast majority of people, and the in-store bit is the purple bit at the bottom. So you can see that this is a diagram or visual they created through the research they did, and it's really helpful. So the orange is online and the purple is offline. And online, about a third of those who browse online will shop in store, and virtually all of those who browse in store will shop in store. So if you get them in store, they're likely to buy in store. And then the research by, obviously the data from Beauclair shows that come December, the proportion of spending that is online drops because people want to go into town centres. So, you know, it's the experience of being in a town centre with lights and Christmas and the eating out. And, you know, we all have done it. We've all created a great play and, you know, getting together with friends and family before Christmas and combining that with Christmas trips. So there's a lot of that. So that proportion of online spending does drop. And of course, the nearer you get, as you say, the nearer you get to the D-Day or C-Day, the more likely you are to go in store, particularly all those men, sorry to be sexist, AJ, who don't buy Christmas presents till Christmas Eve. You know, perfect. I used to run my parents ran a boutique business, and I used to love Christmas Eve because you'd get all the chaps coming in, having not bought their wives presents, desperate to buy a present. So the 23rd of December is typically the busiest trading day, and that's on Monday now, and Christmas Day is the Wednesday. So we're likely to see a big uplift on that day. And then you've also got the Saturday prior to that as well. So we're likely to see those phrases, Super Saturday, Manic Monday this year come through, because that's the peak of Christmas trading this year.
I think there was another one, isn't there, in terms of there's some research that we looked at last year, which was looking at kind of the opinions of sort of millennials and sort of younger people and the real desire for immediacy and actually not wanting to wait 24 hours or 48 hours for your Amazon parcel, and actually, you know, operating something like click and collect means that you can literally kind of be online and you could be walking into a store like 2 hours later. And so, you know, I think as well as the kind of older men, you know, there is also, particularly as you said, with the pressures on, like that sort of, you know, real kind of immediate opportunity that the high street can fulfill.
Yeah, and I think young kids, actually, the younger generation, yeah, Gen Z and Gen Alpha now, actually have rediscovered stores. You know, they want to go into stores. They suddenly said, oh, these places like called shops, you can actually buy things, like, you know, you don't have to be at your computer. They can engage with each other there and see each other. So I think there is a desire now to go back into store. The convenience of online will always have a big pull for a lot of people, particularly if you have commitments at home and you haven't got the time to necessarily spend as much time shopping as you want to, or can do it early enough. Then there will always be but you don't get that. It is of a transactional visit online. You know, you can't capture Christmas online. It's not easy to do it. It becomes very transactional, whereas actually people want to step away from that to a degree at Christmas and have the enjoyment of Christmas before the chaos hits at Christmas.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing about that sort of customer journey mapping you've just shown is that if I've got this right, if your customer journey starts in bricks and mortar, physically browsing for stuff, then it remains that way. Yeah. And that's what you will, in terms of your purchasing, will remain. It's very likely to remain in person. Whereas if it starts online, there are different opportunities, different stages where you get the chance to pull people into the physical experience.
You're absolutely right, AJ, and I was going to actually say that, you know, even if people are shopping online, a large proportion of those will opt. So a quarter of those who shop online will opt for out-of-home delivery, go and click and collect. You know, and John Lewis picked this up very early on in the day. They said, you know, people who shopped online and collected in store spent 3 times as much as those who actually had it delivered, because, you know, you walk through the store to click and collect and you see things you like, and so you'll buy them. And actually, so if you can, even if even if they are shopping online, you can engage with that online shopper by offering them the convenience to pick their purchases up. So whether that be lockers, whether that be decent collect and collect opportunities in the town centre. And that's always been a bit of a hurdle for a lot of stores. You know, you often find when you go and click and collect, you're in a queue of about 10 people trying to click and collect, which is time consuming. And it doesn't even offer you the opportunity to wander around the store. You know, you want to have, if you're going to be in store, take that opportunity. But then on the returns bit, where a lot of the half of those who return online items do so physically, so they'll either take it back to a store or to a locker. So again, there's another opportunity. So there is a real synergy between online and offline. And I think we probably forget that a little bit. And there's opportunities to just create convenience in a town centre that complements the store visit, but also the online visit.
Yeah, it feels like there's lots of opportunities for us to intervene at the right point to benefit the high street. Can I bring the other Diane in, Aylesbury?
Yeah, hi.
Thanks for being so patient. I know you've
That's
had
quite all right. No worries. Just going back to the Christmas lights. So in Aylesbury, we do the Christmas lights, and it was devolved to us from the Unitary Authority back 3 years ago. And it really has been interesting. But one of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years is we've actually moved the Christmas light switch on closer into Christmas. So originally it was always done probably about the second week of November. And the businesses weren't seeing any benefit as a result of it being on at that time. So the first year we took it, we moved it forward a week. Again, still wasn't enough take up for people coming into town to see the lights. But so we moved this year, we're moving it to the 24th of November. And it's everyone's actually more excited because we're very close to payday. So people are just sort of thinking, you know, okay, how are they going to work it in terms of buying stuff? But we're keen to see what the difference is. But from the evidence that we've got, there is a direct correlation with the lights going up later than having put them up earlier. So that gets great because we get a cost saving on the electricity. But you know, from that point of view, and also we used to the old Unitary Authority used to do the Christmas light switching on a midweek night, which there's the start of late night shopping. Late night shopping doesn't happen in Aylesbury. It's non-existent, and however hard anybody tries to do it, it just doesn't want to change. So as a result, now we move our event through to on a Sunday. And again, the footfall that comes into the town with a parade, with all the lights, makes a huge difference. And again, the evidence that we're seeing from the businesses, they're taking more money in the fact it's a joint effort, as in an event and the lights. And people are really coming in for it to a point. Last year, the town nearly bust because we didn't know what to do with everybody. But yeah, it's made a big difference sort of thinking about planning actually when the lights are that suits the businesses rather than actually you think I want to put it up now just because it looks nice. It's better for the town holding off.
That's really interesting. And I wonder if that actually just underlines the point about people's shopping habits when it comes to Christmas being pushed back, because people might have started early in terms of shopping for Christmas, but a lot of it is just getting the stuff they need online. And then as you get closer and closer, people then think, I can't rely on online because of the postal system. I want to be in the high street now. And that's when the lights really do play a role in encouraging people to your high street. So I wonder what the link is between that. That's really important. I'd be keen to find out from others as well about the timing of introducing Christmas lights, because clearly Christmas is a changing thing. It's evolving all the time. So things like timing, things like what works when, it's not something that's necessarily going to be static. And I might Martin and Jaxx, I might come back to you guys in a bit as well, just to have a little discussion about timing around when Christmas lights should be going up. But first, Daisy, can I bring you in?
Yeah, actually it leads on really nicely from what you were just talking about, Diane, with late night shopping, because it's something we struggle with in Norwich as well. So I think the data that was really useful for us was seeing that kind of combination there of people wanting those experiences in terms of food and drink alongside their retail experiences. So I was wondering if there was any more data that we could share with our businesses to kind of give them that confidence around the opportunity for late night shopping and the day parts that people are wanting to spend their money in, because we just want to give our businesses the confidence that if they put that extra staff on, we can create a really lovely evening experience for shoppers in Norwich. So it's more of a question back to Diane, really, around data, around day part spends.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, Daisy, and getting to that granular level is tricky. The data that we Beauclair have is at a monthly level, but obviously what we're looking at here within that sales data, you can unpick it quite a lot. You can look at total sales, but then you can look at the number of transactions people are making, the number of customers they're attracting, and also their average spend. And interestingly, I was just looking at the September results because I'm writing the insights for September this morning. The only one of the 5 key sectors that saw an increase in average spend in September was food and drink. You know, wow. So whilst customers are down, transactions are down, people who do go and out, even in September, to eat and dine out, are spending more whilst they're there because they're clearly making more of that trip. So it's about helping the businesses understand where that sales is coming from. So there may be fewer people, but actually those who are there are spending more money. And so it's about trying to upsell the customers you have, you know, offer them more expensive items on the menu and try and get them to have a dessert and, you know, get them in earlier to have drinks. And those are the way they can upsell, even within an environment, a trading environment that can be quite challenging. But clearly those people who are going out are dedicated diners and want to have a great time. So I know the footfall data, you can split that hour of the day, but of course, as I showed in that graph, footfall data doesn't always flow through to spend. So people could be wandering around at 5 o'clock in the evening, but not actually going into any of the dining outlets. But it's, I think, looking just at those key metrics of, you know, customers, transactions and average spend, you can get a really good feel as to what's happening in those places. And I think that's where the spend data has its real value.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. I think it is that story around the experience and combining dining and shopping and people really wanting those experiences.
I mean, one of the other things that I've been working on is I work with a company called AL Marketing, and they're a marketing agency and they work with a lot of shopping centres, but we've actually carried out a survey of consumers through social media. So it's a link to a SurveyMonkey survey, and you just put it through your social media channel and you can ask shoppers what they like to do. You know, so anyone who goes onto the, you know, Norwich's social channel can answer the survey, you know, when do they come, what do they like spending. So that might be a really good opportunity for you to actually survey some consumers around when are they eating, when do they prefer eating, and it's free to do, and you can do that yourself.
Yeah, just to give businesses that kind of backing that, yeah, the data's behind it. Yeah, thank you. It's really helpful.
That's really interesting, and obviously it's really important to understand the different dynamics between different places. So of course what works for Aylesbury isn't going to be the same as what works for Norwich, especially when you will have a population of people who will be working in a lot of the office space you have, which probably opens up the opportunity for some midweek late night shopping, which won't exist in some smaller areas. So it is understanding what will work for each area. And Nikki, I know in the chat box you showed the slide on the dip in online spending last year. Do you want to put that up actually so we can all see it? It's just for people who are watching this as a recorded version and not live. It's just making that available to them.
Yeah, this is a really great graph, actually, and I would love to include everything in my deck, but I was conscious, OJ, that you gave me 10 minutes, so I had to cut it out. But I love this graph because what it does, it combines 2 sets of data. It shows the percentage of spending that is online. So you can see the green line is general retail, and that's where I said that 2/3 of spending in general retail is online. And it shows it across the year from January through to December last year. And you can see that it's fairly flat. But actually, in November to December, you could see the drop-off of spend online in each of those 5 sectors. And you can see the biggest drop-off in health and beauty and in fashion. And that's the month as a whole. So it's not necessarily the last few days, but people clearly return to store buying in December. And so online becomes less appealing to them. Now, it's not all sectors. You know, food and drink stays flat because, you know, there is a proportion of food and drink online, not a huge proportion. Most of it is offline, but still it drops a little bit. And food, it stays fairly flat because you tend to get entrenched in your habits. But then even people, there's a slight dip from the peak in January when people go online in December, because people like to browse around and get some goodies to eat at Christmas. So, but you can see the importance of store sales and store spending in December. And so we are, as consumers, very prone to go into stores in December, much more prone.
Yeah, thank you for that. The drop off in fashion is massive.
Absolutely.
From November as well. I mean, I tell you what, it'll be good to see this again for this year once we've gone through the entire 12 months, because obviously we also had the challenge around the cost of living as well, which might make it a little bit tricky in terms of understanding.
But of course, that's national numbers, OJ, as well. So what Beauclair take is that those are national numbers, but you can actually divide it up into catchment areas around individual towns. So that trend in an individual town may vary. So and that's a piece of research that Beauclair can actually do for individual towns. So if you're looking at trying to understand what your town, your profile of your town in terms of online versus offline, they can do that for you.
Really interesting. Karen, I'm going to come to you in a second. First, sort of Martin, Jaxx, any advice on the timing of introducing Christmas lights? At what point during the festive season do you think tends to work in different types of areas?
I think historically Regent Street in London have gone first and big and bold, haven't they, on the TV? They've had the switch on event, and that tends to be the trigger for then other people to follow on. But Diane from Aylesbury was absolutely right that the weekend she's identified is our busiest switch on by far across that weekend. The last weekend in November is when a lot, probably 70% of switch ons go ahead, which for us is an absolute nightmare, obviously, to try and man that. But as we were saying about the Twinkly Pro, remote controlling that from Burnley is a dream, really. It's as long as everything's in place and works, then it's fine. You don't have to have crews dashing all over the country on the same weekend, you know. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, there's no right and wrong, I don't think, but obviously Diane's identified in Aylesbury that works better in their locality, but like you say, it's not necessarily the case all over the country.
Yeah, really interesting. Karen, can I bring you in?
Yeah, it was just a quick one following on from the discussions there about late night shopping. I mean, I remember running campaigns in the past where, you know, you tried everything you possibly could to get as many retailers open, to get it to offer free car parking, to get people in, and it died a death. And then they tried it next year and you tried to do it. And I wonder whether the late night shopping thing is something that's primarily reserved for like the big cities where you have huge concentrations of people, and the smaller places will really struggle with it. And then I also wonder whether the working from home thing is having an impact on people being around at the end of the day as well, or whether that changes towards Christmas. Because we see shifts in London, you know, where nighttime businesses are, the popular nights have shifted to other nights during the week, so the people aren't around, or whether that doesn't affect late night shopping as much. Just throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, from what the data has been showing is that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is massive in London, but I think London is a bit of a individual case. Just because even if you live in London, the commuting time is an hour, sometimes maybe more than that, even if you live in London and work in London. So I think that does differ from towns and cities outside London. And I know that late night shopping, you know, doesn't always take off in smaller towns around the UK. And people still, retailers, you know, don't stay open late because they stay open late, staff it, costs them a fortune, and no one comes. But possibly it may be more of creating an event around late night opening, maybe doing late opening, you know. I mean, rather, it is really tricky, because if you don't, then there are a portion of consumers will say, oh, I want to come late nights. But I think the working at home, I think, has eased that slightly, because if you're working at home for a day, you can actually nip out at 5 o'clock. more easily than you can if you're in the office necessarily. You know, sometimes you just can't make it if you're in the office.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, you're in a town centre at 5 o'clock, and sometimes that helps. So it is quite confusing, and there is a lot of noise around the data. And I think it is a very individual town-based thing, actually.
I think it's a shifting sand. It feels like something that's like moving. Yeah.
It is. We're not there yet. You know, I think a lot of employers are still trying to encourage people back into the office, sometimes forcing them back into the office through, you know, with a lot of resistance. And I think it's going to take a year or two before that pattern settles and we've got a new normal in terms of working.
Yeah. We are close to time. I'm meeting civil servants at 11:30. So very, very quick question. If anybody wants to jump in and try and answer it, Diane, it might be down to you again. We talk about Christmas. A big part of the shopping experience during Christmas is the bit after Christmas. What about Boxing Day? Is there anybody doing anything for Boxing Day sales? Maya will hate me for saying this. It's just going to be something else for her to have to think about. Boxing Day sales. Does anybody prepare for that? Does anybody do any schemes around promoting Boxing Day as an activity on the high street?
You need
Or is
to.
everybody just exhausted and wants
You need to promote it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, OJ, that Boxing Day issue comes up time and time again. You know, Boxing Day used to be massive, I mean, 30 years ago, but it's become less significant now because of online. You know, as you know, if you've got Christmas money as a gift, you go out on Boxing Day and spend it in the sales. But now you can shop online from Christmas Day. You know, you get the money, you go off to your bedroom as a kid or whatever, and you get onto your laptop or your mobile and you can spend it in 10 minutes because the all offers are there. And I think there are a number of dynamics that have come into play around Boxing Day that have lessened the significance of Boxing Day from where it was. One is the online thing. Two is the blended families thing, because there's more blended families than ever before. And, you know, a lot of that is about having then a 2-day Christmas, you know, Christmas Day with one part of the family, Boxing Day with another part of the family, which means you're not then out shopping. So that's changed. I mean, so those we've seen, I mean, you know, in a previous life with Springboard, I saw that every year footfall was dropping on Boxing Day from the Boxing Day prior. So it is becoming less significant. And therefore, a lot of retailers have decided to not open their stores on Boxing Day and give their staff a rest, you know, and I think that may actually increase over time. So people are just recognizing that there's less impetus to go shopping on Boxing Day. The 27th is now becoming a bit more of a day for shopping than 26th.
Interesting. And I wish we had more time to delve into it, but gotta run. So guys, that's been really fascinating meeting.
Thanks, OJ. Interesting.
So much more we could have covered. Always feels like only the tip of the iceberg. But Martin, Jaxx, Diane, all fantastic insight. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for all the contributions. Guys, I hope to see you all soon. I don't think the next High Street Conversations now isn't going to be till the 24th of October. So that's food delivery and the public realm. So yeah, get signed on for that if you're interested. Thank you very much. See you all.